Hi, this video is third in the series of the left and the right hemisphere of the brains. And happy Vinayak Chaturthi to all of you. So this is a festival that is celebrated in India, and today that's why I'm dressed traditional, and hope all of you are having a great time for all of those for whom it matters. Okay, so let me dive into the topic of the brain damage, and this is third in the series. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what happens when one side of the brain actually gets damaged, and then whether the location part of it really matters, and how does personality, individual personality, is it really linked to the dominance of the left or the right hemisphere of the brain. Okay, so let's just dive into this. So how does damage to the right or left side affect a person? So there is enough research and evidence that the left side is damaged, then there is damage of vision, there is reduction in spatial frequency, people are only able to see the larger parts of the image, and speech has grammatical errors, meaning is not understood very well of the words. And the right side, what happens is, if there is excessive activity in the right side, people have the thoughts of suicide, depression and angst, and it can also cause problems of language and perception. I mean, in terms of intonation and like I was talking in my previous videos about the drama that we do while we speak the language, right? So that part of it is lost, and just lack of emotion while speaking is something that can be related to the damage of the right side. Now moving on to whether location matters. So in that sense, just trying to understand the functionalities of the sides, there seems to be some truth that a particular side has a particular function, and in that sense location matters, because if there is a damage in the front part of the brain, it's linked to reduced motivation, difficulty in planning or doing day-to-day tasks. And if there is damage in the back side of the brain, it is really linked to the visual information from the eye, and there could be a possibility of one getting blind. And so these are just a few examples of how certain parts of the brain appear responsible for specific functions. But when it is to do with individual personality, there is somehow research doesn't support that there is any kind of residence to one side of the brain, that is, such as creativity or a tendency towards rational rather than the intuitive. There has been little or no evidence to support that the one side of the brain is dominant. So what is the question that comes into our mind then? Is the right brain and left brain kind of a thing, is that a myth? Because we keep telling ourselves, or we tell people around, that hey, you are right brain dominant, you are left brain dominant. So is that a myth? So is the idea of thinking with the left side or of your brain a myth? Maybe it's a myth, but there's a lot of research done on brain scans of thousands of young people in the age group of 7 to 29, and divided different areas of the brain into 7,000 regions, like it's says in the slide, right? To determine whether one side of the brain was more active or connected than the other side. And the results actually showed that there wasn't evidence of sideness was towards one side. There's no such evidence. So the authors basically concluded that we really don't know how is personality formed, because there doesn't seem to be connection of the dominance or the sideness of one side being dominant, and therefore that is how the personality is. In fact, as it's mentioned in the slide there, one of the studies done in University of Utah, brain scans actually demonstrate that activity is similar on both sides of the brain regardless of one's personality. So whether you call yourself a creative person or a mathematician, when the brain scans were done for these kind of individuals, the regions, there wasn't a separate region that sparked for mathematicians, or a separate regions for the creative kind of individuals. So there isn't accurate description to this. So what does it lead to, right? Is that which side is superior? As I said, I have also spoken about this in my previous videos also, that there's nothing that any side is superior, and there isn't enough evidence also to support that if there is a kind of personality, it is because of the dominance of left side or right side, or the while there are certain functions of the left hemisphere and right hemisphere, which I said in my first video, starts off right from the womb, right? The way the neuro pathways are wired in the womb probably makes a particular side dominant in terms of functions, but from an individual personality standpoint, everything seems to be activated. It seems to happen naturally. So it's probably inaccurate to link these traits to any one side of the brain, traits of being creative or rational. So definitely what is gets concluded out of this is one really does not know how is a personality formed. Of course, there is a lot of it that can be linked to it in terms of the experiences, influences, the environment that we are brought up in, and there's a lot of emphasis given on environment of the way the child is brought up, but the individual personality in that sense is not linked to any dominance of any side of the brain. Having said that, I'm also going to be talking about the gray matter. In fact, I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live on the gray matters, the male and female brains, with very well-known makeup artists of India in the next Tuesday. So be there to attend the Facebook Live. So thanks so much for watching, and do not forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.